Hello everyone, and welcome to the Sustainable Library. Also, welcome to the first step in the Sustainable Living Challenge. I'm very excited to have you all with me. We will be going through this for 12 weeks, but as I explained on my YouTube channel in my introduction video, you can go about this series in any way, in any order that you like, but I have designed it in the order that I have, and I'll be going through it in this order because I found it to be the most successful. So today, the first thing we will be discussing is paper. So it's all about paper. The reason why I am starting with paper is because when I started with my 12-month sustainable living journey, I basically picked the first and easiest thing. I think for many of us, paper was probably the first thing we learned to recycle. I know for me it was. And it's also the one form of resource that we have quite a robust recycling system in place for in most places in the world. So that's why I wanted to start with paper. Also, I feel like a lot of us have already transitioned away from paper, but in some ways we're still very attached to paper, especially when it comes to things like books and notebooks and things like that. So today I'm going to share with you a few tips on how you can start printing less. So, printing is a difficult one. Some of us don't print at all anymore. I don't really print. And in our personal lives, we don't print that much. But at work, we still sometimes need to print. So, what I'm going to share with you guys today is a few tips on what you need to ask yourself or do beforehand before printing. So, my very first printing tip, or how to print less tip, is ask yourself whether you really need to print this thing. Is this an agenda for a meeting that you need to print, or can you take your laptop with you to the meeting? Is this a report that you need to edit or you need to read out, or can you read it on your screen? Now, I know there are a lot of debates around whether reading on screen or printing it out, which one uses the most energy. Today we're not focusing on energy, and that's something that I will be discussing later on in this series. But we are simply talking about paper. So yes, ask yourself, do I really need this paper? And if I am going to print it, am I going to keep it afterwards for a long period of time? If not, do I really need to print it? Or can I just view it on my laptop, on my screen, or even on something like an iPad? My second tip is to use the technology that's been given to us. So something that's quite prevalent in the publishing industry specifically, and I'm sure in a lot of other businesses and work environments as well, is printing off a piece of paper, a piece of text, and editing it on the paper. So this is one of my pet peeves because we have this amazing technology on Microsoft Office called Track Changes, and it can literally be used on all of the programs. The great thing about this is also, if you have your document online, you can actually share it with lots of different people, and people can do tracking at the same time. They can make notes, and you can actually read everything they're writing, because a lot of people have, let's be honest, really bad handwriting, like me. So I would say my second tip is definitely to use the technology that's been given to us, and to especially use Track Changes and not print things off if you don't need to. Some would say it's easier to edit on paper, but we really need to ask ourselves if it's really necessary, or if we can make 2 or 3 little changes just by using a bit of technology that's already there for us to use. My third tip is, once you've established you really do need to print this piece of document, then that is fine, because there are things that we sometimes need to print. But before you actually print it, proofread it. so important. You can't imagine how many times things go to printer and it comes back and there's a spelling mistake and you have to redo this. This is especially important if you're printing large amounts of the same thing. So I'd really say send the document to someone else to proofread before you print it, so that they can look at it with a fresh eye, and that way you'll pick up if there's anything. Let's not rush the process, rather get it right than print double or 3 times as much as you would need to if you didn't proofread. And my last and final tip is actually swapping out this for this. Now, I say this because I swapped over to using an iPad/tablet a few years ago to take all my notes during meetings, when I go to conferences, when I'm anywhere. I use my iPad instead of my notebook. I found that I'm much more organized because I can use apps and I can use technology. I can use programs like OneNote, for example, that organizes all my notes correctly and has a date attached to them. It's much easier to search, and I'm not filling up pages and pages of notebook that afterwards I don't know what to do with, or I want to keep, but I can't carry them with me all everywhere. I've also been one of those people who's moved quite a lot, and I've really seen how difficult it is to take stacks of notebooks with me. So once again, I know there's a question about the energy usage when it comes to technology like tablets or iPads, and we will get to that. But I would really suggest next time your notebook is full, why not see if you can't use your iPad for the next time you're in a meeting, at a conference, in a lecture, and rather take notes that way. That way we can save some paper and we can have it all digitally stored, safe, and easy to use. Thank you guys so much for listening to my paper tips today. I hope these tips have made you think a little bit about when we should print and what we should do before we print, and just how we can save a bit of paper by possibly printing less or printing more smartly. Yes, keep an eye out for my next video, which will be all about plastic, and I look forward to seeing you again. Until we meet again, let's all live sustainably.